And just kicking off the recording. So morning to Sue and morning to Di. Having the recording. So we're doing our hips this week, focusing on our hips. So have your blocks ready and your extra padding for your knees. So to start with, we're in semi-supine. So come down to the mat and bend your knees, bring your feet in close to your hips. And just take a moment to breathe. Just place one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly, and just let everything settle. Breathing in through the nose, out through the nose. So no forcing of the breath, just let it happen. Just release. Nice to do this with your eyes closed. Make sure that the back of your head is resting down on the mat so that you're not tilting your head upwards. So your neck is nice and long, and you should be feeling the whole of the center of the back, the center of the upper back, resting on the mat. And just have a little adjustment of your pelvis. So lift it, bring it forward, send it back. So exaggerate that arch in your lower back and then send the lower back down to the mat. Just easing out through the lower spine. Just encouraging even more length from the lumbar region of the spine all the way up to the top of the head. And as you breathe in, send that breath all the way down to the one hand that's on the belly. Breathing out, feel the hands sink down into the body. Breathing in, the hand that's on the heart will lift, the hand over the belly will lift. Breathe out and release. Before we get into our practice, just take a moment to check through your body. How's it feeling this morning? Any areas that are giving you any problems, any stiffness, any tension? Just see if you can give them a little bit more love and attention. Send your breath to those areas. So today we're going to be focusing on the hips. There's quite a lot of hip work. And it's all based on a nice little article that I was reading this week, which is all about your psoas muscle. So the psoas muscle, P-S-O-A-S, is the muscle that starts really deep in the lumbar region and sort of around from the back body, because it starts just below the kidneys and the adrenal glands. And then it makes its way out of the hip and then all the way along the front of the hip and down the front of the leg towards the femur. So this muscle, because it's supporting the kidneys and the adrenal glands, it sort of creates a shelf for those. Every time we manipulate this muscle and move the muscle, contract it, extend it, we massage the kidneys and the adrenal glands. So very often people say when they're working with their hips and they're opening their hips, that they can feel quite emotional. And I've always been fascinated with why that can possibly happen. And it's to do with the fact that this muscle is triggering a response in the adrenal glands. So every time you do anything that moves that muscle, you massage those glands, and that's where we get our adrenaline from. And the adrenaline is very much related to how we feel, to our emotions. So it's connected to the fight and flight response. And, you know, at any time that we've got any stress or tension in our life, and we start to tense up, so you can see why, if we've got any tension in our hips, why that can manifest itself by making us feel emotional. So they say if your psoas muscle is out of balance, then your emotions can be out of balance too. So we're going to do some work with that today. So just take your hands out wide, have your palms facing down, so out in a T shape. Take a deep breath in. And as you exhale, let both knees drop over to the right-hand side. So keep your shoulders in contact with the mat. And if you want to add in that extra twist, if your neck's okay, turn your neck to your left hand. Keep breathing. Start to feel how you're creating a stretch over the left hip. Take a few breaths here. On your next inhalation, bring your knees back to center. Exhale them over to the left. Turn your gaze to the right. Opening through the right side of the body. Keep breathing, sending your breath all the way down towards the belly. But feel as though you're sending it down to your right hip this time. So we're going to gently ease some movement into our hips before we get into some of the more opening asanas. Inhale, bring yourself back upright. Exhale, release. Allow your lower spine to settle back into the mat. So leaving your hands where they are. Inhale and bend your right knee and place your right ankle just below your left knee. So have your right foot out towards the side. So something that my teacher always says is imagine your feet are always in Tadasana. So your feet are strong. So your right foot, your ankle is strong. Your toes are pointing up to the ceiling. Inhale. Now as you exhale and drop that left knee towards the left, imagine you're trying to send your right foot down onto the mat. Just stamping that foot onto the mat. So you're adding in just that little bit extra twist. You can take your gaze to the right hand again. Keep breathing. If there's any tension anywhere, just try and release it. So we're trying to open up these hips, allowing them to sink towards the left-hand side. Opening out the right hip by having that right knee pointing up to the ceiling. So we're starting to stimulate the psoas muscle. On your next inhalation, bring yourself back to center. Exhale and let that right leg come back to the mat. And then inhale and swap your feet. So we've got the left foot resting on your right thigh. So the left ankle, the left foot is out to the side. Try and open up that left knee. So feel as though you're starting to work that left muscle, that left psoas muscle. Inhale. Exhale, send the left foot over to the right. Turn your gaze to the left if that's good for you. Keep breathing into that hip. On your next inhalation, bring yourself back upright. Exhale and release the left foot. So we're going to take a deep breath in. Bring your knees up and over your chest and just clasp your hands around your shins. Have a little massage of your back, a little rock side to side. Starting to loosen up the back. Lift your head and bring your head towards your knees. Place it back on the mat. And then when you're ready, start rolling along the mat. So take your hands maybe behind your knees and roll back and forth. And bring yourself up to seated. So from this seated position, if you can just get your blocks or your books and just place them on the outside of your hips so that we've got them here. If we were to put our hands out, we're going to just try something. So we're just going to test and see how our hips are feeling this morning. So there are 3 different positions for sitting and usually sitting and meditating. So the first one is just the cross-legged position. So we cross at the shins and we tuck our feet underneath the backs of our thighs and we sit up straight and tall. So just try this one. Breathing in, just let your hands rest on your knees. This is Sukhasana, easy pose. And just breathe and just assess where there's any tension. You might be starting to feel it in the one hip that's got the higher leg. The lower leg doesn't get so much tension here. So just swap your feet around and just see, are you now feeling tension in the other side? So if your hips are already quite open, then maybe this is very comfortable for you. So that's good, that bodes well for what we're going to do in the rest of the class. So this is Sukhasana. So I just want you to note how you're feeling before we get into the other asanas. So then another seated position is the accomplished pose. Now this one, you take the heel of one foot and you bring it towards your inner groin. And then you take the heel of the other one and you place it on top of the lower foot. So you can already see that that's sending your knees a little bit closer to the mat. So this is Siddhasana, accomplished pose. So again, sit up straight and tall. So this one is encouraging the hips to open just a little bit more and might be causing some tension in the hips, also might be causing tension in the knees. So if that's the case, you can just take a block under the knee. But I just want you to try and get into that pose and just assess how it's feeling. And then just swap the feet over, try it the other way. So the right foot is on the floor, the left one is resting on the top. I find this more of an issue with my ankles because they're so bony that they feel uncomfortable together. So if that's the case, and if we were going to sit in here for any length of time, I would put something between those two. So just take a breath here. And now we're going to try the third one. So the third seated position is lotus pose. Now this might not be achievable. It's not going to be achievable for me at the start of the practice, but I'm going to show you what we do to get into it. So we lift one of our feet and we place it on the thigh of the other leg, and then just allow that knee to drop down. So have a moment and just allow it to happen. Breathe into that hip. And then, if you can, you lift the other foot and you place it, I've managed to do it, onto the other thigh. Now, if that is not achievable, I don't want you to force it. I want you to leave the foot on the floor. But if you can do it, then just assess where you're feeling the tension. And then, this is where the blocks come in. We can place our hands on the block. So if you've still got one leg dangling, that's not a problem. Just see if you can lift your hips up and away from the mat. And then release. And slowly uncross those legs. Send them out in front of you. Have a little wiggle. Ease out the hips. So that was our starting point. That was our little test to see how we're going to feel after we've done some of these asanas. So move yourself now into your all fours position. So from all fours, we're just going to do 3 cat-cows just to ease out through our spine. So spread your hands under your shoulders, knees under the hips. Inhale. As you exhale, lift the top of your back, drop your head down towards the mat, opening out through the shoulders. You're in cat pose, Marichanasana. Take a breath at the top. As you exhale, start to send your pelvis up to the ceiling, creating that dip. Send your chest and your chin forward. You're in cow, Vidalasana. Inhale, exhale to move. Come into cat pose. Feel as though you're trying to push that mat away from you. Inhale, exhale to cow. Once more. Inhale, exhale, up into cat. Drop the head. Inhale, exhale. You're in cow. Inhale, come back to a flat back. So from this flat back position, engage the tummy muscles. And we're going to lift our right leg out to the side. So imagine that you've got a cup of tea on your back and you're not going to spill it. So we're not dropping over to the left. So inhale, tummy muscles are engaged. Lift your right knee out to the side. Rotate that hip. So imagine you're drawing a circle with the right knee. Clockwise direction. And then rotate it in the anti-clockwise direction. Keep breathing. So you're really working into that hip. On your next inhalation, hold the knee out to the side. As you exhale, draw it in towards your left shoulder, your left elbow. Inhale, send it out to the side. Exhale, send the leg straight out behind you. Point the toes. Inhale and bring the knee back to your all fours position. So I'm going to try that on the other side. So find your flat back. Inhale, lift your left leg. So remember, we're not dropping over to the side, we're balancing that cup of tea on the back. Start to rotate the hip, clockwise direction. Keep those tummy muscles engaged. This is a simple move, but it will generate some heat in your body. And then anti-clockwise, working into the hip. As you inhale, hold the leg out to the left. Exhale, bring the knee to your right elbow. Inhale, send it out to the side. Exhale, straighten the leg out behind you. Inhale, come back to all fours. So we're starting to bring some heat and some movement into the practice. So you're back in your all fours position. Inhale, engage the tummy muscles, toes into the mat, lift your knees and your hips, downward facing dog. A little bit of movement here, bend your knees. Start to get that movement all the way up into the hips. Keep breathing. And then allow your heels to come towards the mat. Allow them to sink. Bend your head through your arms. Have that feeling you're trying to place your rib cage on the tops of your legs. Inhale. As you exhale, bring your knees to the mat, but take them wide, toes together, sitting back onto your heels. You're in child's pose. So rest your head down in front of you. So child's pose is a really good hip opener. So have that feeling you're sliding back down the mat. You're sending your hips down to the heels and you're trying to send your chest down towards the mat. You start to feel that in the inner thighs and into the hips. Inhale, come back up to all fours, realign your knees. Exhale, downward facing dog. So we're going to do the move between those two poses on our next 3 in and out breaths. Inhale. Exhale, knees to the mat, take them wide, hips back to the heels. Inhale, bring yourself back to all fours, toes into the mat. Exhale, up to downward facing dog. Inhale. Exhale, knees to the mat, take them wide, back into child's. Inhale, back to all fours, realign your knees. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale. Exhale, knees to the mat, take them wide, sinking back. Child's pose. Inhale, bring yourself back up, downward facing dog. Stay here this time. So bring your feet in a little bit closer, sending your heels down to the mat. Inhale, exhale that right leg up into the air, three-legged dog. So really reach away with the right toes. Feel the opening through the front of the leg up into the psoas. As you exhale, bend the knee and drop the right heel over to the left hip. So now you're really opening through the front of the hip. Inhale, bring yourself back to center. Exhale and bend in that right knee up towards your chest. Send your weight forward. Step your foot through. So we're in a low lunge position, but drop your left knee to the mat. Now you might need some more padding here. So if you've got a blanket, place it under the left knee. So we're going to be doing a little bit on this knee. So from this position, make sure that your right foot is under your right knee. Inhale, sweep your hands up, lifting up to the ceiling, but sinking back into a crescent pose. So you should be feeling that opening into your left psoas muscle, the left hip. So you're sinking the hips forward, reaching the hands up to the ceiling. Just having a look at you. That's it. Keep breathing. So this is a low lunge, opening out through that muscle, psoas muscle. Inhale, exhale, sweep your hands back to the mat. So we're going to move into our lizard pose now. Take your right hand so that it's inside of your right foot. So both hands are to the left of your right foot. And just shimmy your left knee back a little bit. So you're really opening into those hips. And just start to move forward and back. Imagine that you're a lizard sliding along the floor. So bending your elbows, really working into those hips. So do it in any way that feels good for you. Circular movements or almost like a figure of 8. Do what feels good. Work into those hips. Releasing any stiffness there. And if it feels good for you, you can come down onto your elbows. So really work into the hips. Keep breathing. They'll feel tight. So we need to release all that pent-up emotion and stress and tension. Working into these muscles, the psoas muscles, and into the other muscles that run around the hips. So the piriformis is the other big one. And then bring yourself back to an upright position. So you're back into our lizard, just holding both hands on the left-hand side. So now making sure that that left knee feels comfortable. Just have that extra padding. You're going to bend your left foot up towards the ceiling. Be careful with this, do it slowly, because sometimes it can trigger a bit of cramp in the back of the leg. So just bend the leg, easing in. And then sweep your right hand back to the foot. Yeah, there's the cramp. And grab hold of the toe. So you're twisting around towards the right-hand side. You should be feeling this in the left psoas muscle. And if you want to take it further, you can lift your upper body and rest your left hand just above your right knee. Remember to keep breathing. So if there's any tension there, breathe into that tension and release. And then let go of your hand, take your hands back to the mat, release that right knee, move your blanket out of the way, come back to all fours and sink back to child. So open the knees, toes together, release to child's. On your next inhalation, bring yourself back up to all fours. Realign the knees. Inhale, toes into the mat. Exhale, lift your knees and your hips, downward facing dog. We're going to do all those on the other side. Just take a moment here. Let everything settle into place. Bring your feet in a little bit closer. Encourage the heels to come towards the mat. Drop your head through your arms. Inhale, your weight goes into your right foot. Exhale, your left foot up into the air. Really point away with those toes. Feel that stretch. This is great for the right hamstring as well as the left psoas muscle. Inhale, exhale, bend the left knee, drop the left foot over to the right hip, opening out through that left hip. Take your gaze just under your left arm. Inhale, exhale, send your leg back out behind you, three-legged dog. Inhale, bring your knee towards your chest, shift your weight forward, round your back, place your foot through your hands. And drop your right knee to the mat. So get your padding. Your padding under that knee. So we're ready to come up into our lunge and our crescent pose. So make sure left foot, left ankle is under your left knee. Engage your tummy muscles. Inhale as you sweep your hands forward. Lifting through that lunge into crescent. Find that opening through the right psoas muscle. So you can send your left foot a little bit further away if you really want to deepen into that pose. Just make sure your knee is not going forward of the ankle. Inhale. Exhale, sweep your hands back to the mat. Both hands to the inside of the left foot. So just readjust that foot so that you can really feel the movement into the psoas as you come into lizard. Moving back and forth. Doing whatever feels good. Working into that hip. Lengthening the psoas muscle. So hips, they're usually tight for most people. And these hip poses are usually the ones on the tops of our list for the ones we don't like. And I saw a nice quote the other day, and it says, the yoga pose you avoid, the yoga pose you avoid the most, you need the most. So that's what we need to think as we're doing this. So we're in lizard, and if you want to come down onto your elbows, or you can take a block under your elbows as well, if you just want to go through the mid stage. Working into those hips. letting go of all the emotions. And then bringing yourself back upright. So we're going to bend the right knee. So just have a little bit of movement there first, making sure it's not going to go into a cramp. Lifting the foot a few times. And then send your left hand back to your right foot. So you're opening up. Really feel that right psoas muscle lengthening. Send the twist around to the left side of the body. You're looking back towards your left foot. And if you want to increase it, then as you inhale, bring yourself up. Place your right hand just on your left thigh. Take a few breaths here. And then release. Release that left leg. Move your blanket and sink back into child's. Maybe you're sinking back a little deeper. You feel your hip bones touching your heels. You feel that opening into the hips and the inner groins. So inhale and bring yourself back up to all fours. So keeping that flat back from this position. Engage your tummy muscles. Now as you exhale, send your right leg out to the side at a 90-degree angle. So your toes are pointing forward and you're trying to get the whole of the sole of your right foot on the mat. So really send that leg out. Feel how that's working into the hip. But you're getting a nice release as well from those moves from the asanas we did before. And then inhale and bring it back. Exhale, send the other one out, the left leg. And you can increase this stretch just by sending your hips back a little bit. We're just easing out through the hip. So inhale, bring your knee back to center and just sit back on your heels. So we're going to go to a wall or sit against a chair, something that's going to keep your back upright, and have your blocks alongside you. So come back to a wall, or your chair, if your settee's there, and you can sit back against it. We just want something that's going to encourage you to keep your back in that upright position. And then we're going to come into Baddha Konasana. So bringing the soles of your feet together, breathing in, breathing out into those hips, allowing the knees to open and drop out to the mat. So we stay against this wall to stop us from slumping forward. So we really want to keep that length through the spine, working into the hips. When we come into Baddha Konasana, we're just having the mat and we find that tension in the hips. It's easy to just drop your back forward and then you ease in those muscles. You're not getting the full lengthening of the muscles. So do this, sit against the wall. So hopefully your block or your book is close by. So we're going to take the block and we're going to place it under our ankles. So just move your feet slightly forward, put the block in that space, and then lift one leg and then the other. and place your feet on the block. So it's Baddha Konasana, keep that straight spine, lifting those feet up just a few inches will increase the intensity in the opening here, in the inner groins and up into this muscle, the psoas muscle. Now I did this on my course in Exeter, as I was saying at the start, with my tutor, and she said she's coming around giving us more and more blocks to stack them up, and I only got to 3, and she said she's done 12. So I was trying to work that out, because 12 blocks, it's like it's up higher than your head. So I can't work out, but I didn't challenge her. She's not that sort of person that you would challenge. So keep breathing into this, see whether you can go another block. So take your foot forward, or another block or a book, and lift your ankles. Bring the soles of your feet together. And it will get easier. And this really releases into the hips. It will get to the point that you can sit here with a little bit of comfort, she says. And I know you're all looking at me like I'm mad. This is a really good way to release those hips. So we'll just have a few more breaths here. Keep your spine upright. Don't drop the chin. Keep breathing. So use your out breath to find some softness in the inner groins and into the hips. Just try and imagine what it's like having 12 blocks all the way up there. No, not today. Just take one more deep breath here. And then slowly release the one foot, release the other. Take your blocks and just move away from the wall. And we're just going to ease out through the hips before we try our seated positions again. So just find this seated position with your feet just slightly away from the hips and your hands behind you, and drop both of the knees over to the left. So the right knee will go towards the sole of your left foot. So this position is called 90-90. It's a little bit like the Isle of Man flag. So inhale them up to center, exhale over to the right. And yeah, I know the Isle of Man flag's got 3 legs on it, but we've only got 2. So inhale to center, exhale to the left. Just easing out through the hips. And then once you've done that on both sides, bring yourself upright. Take your blocks or your books and put them on either side of you. We're going to try those 3 seated positions that we did at the very beginning. So sitting up straight and tall, so shift the flesh on your hip bones out of the way. And first of all, we'll start in Sukhasana, easy pose. So just sitting in this cross-legged position and just observing, how does this feel? You're probably feeling some energy around the hips where we've had them working, they're quite open. So I'm sure there's some activity there. Sit up straight and tall, keep your tummy muscles engaged, lengthen from the crown of the head And then swap your feet. So tuck in the feet underneath, your heels are coming under the hip area. Easy pose. Sukhasana. Make sure the tummy muscles are engaged. We're not slumping anywhere. We're holding a nice upright seat. And then let's try Siddhasana. So take your right heel, bring it in towards the inner groin. Take your left foot, place it on top. So allow that left hip to open, that left knee to drop towards the mat. Find that length in your spine. Just rest your hands on your knees. How is it feeling? Any easier? Yes, excellent. I'm getting some thumbs up. One more breath here, and then we'll move to the other side. So release that left foot and take the left foot in towards the groin. Place the right foot on top. So your right knee is dropping down. Don't forget, you can always use the blocks to pad the knees if the knees are more of a problem than the hips. So sit up straight and tall. Few breaths here. Noticing how different one side of the body can be to the other. Maybe the other side, your knee was coming much closer to the mat than on this side. Maybe your feet are nestling into each other a little bit more. I'm finding this a little bit more comfortable than before. So I think my foot must be sliding up my leg a little bit more. And now let's try the big one, lotus pose. So very slowly lift your one foot and place it just up towards your, so if you're taking your right foot, you're putting it on your left thigh, and your right heel comes in towards your left hip. And then if you feel you can do it, lift the left leg and bring it up to the right thigh. And have your blocks on either side of you. Breathing in, lifting up, lifting through the shoulders. See if you can swing back and forth in lotus pose, Padmasana. Just going to have a quick look at you all, see how you're doing. Well done. Even if it's only half lotus, it's good to give that a go. Well done. So now releasing that side. Let's try the other. So hopefully you can see that this pose is achievable to us. It might not have been for you before, but we can work on it. So see if you can place your one foot on. This is much more difficult than the other. So one side wants to go. Oh, I don't think I'm going to do it. And if it won't go, don't worry. Just get to where you can. Hands on the block, lifting yourself up. And obviously it's much easier if your both legs are up. But if not, then it's something to work on. I saw another quote that said, "This is yoga practice, not yoga perfect." So that's something to keep in mind as well. So release your blocks, release your legs, Let's ease out through those hips. So come back to our 90-90 position. Just have some release here, leaning back into your hands and just send them over to the right, over to the left, easing out. And then bring yourself back to your mats into semi-supine. So coming down onto the mat, allow your back to rest down onto the mat. Take your hands out wide in a T shape. Knees are together, feet are together, heels are comfortably close to the hips. Inhale, exhale, let them both drop over to the right, just easing out through those hips. Send your gaze over to the left. So we're back where we started. Maybe you're noticing a difference. Maybe your knees are much closer to the mat now. Maybe this feels a little bit more fluid. Inhale and bring your knees up to center. Exhale and drop them to the left. So once more on each side, inhale into center, exhale into release. Your gaze can be to the opposite hand if that feels good. Inhale to center, exhale, release. Inhale to center. Send both your legs out along the mat. And then inhale and bring your right knee up and over the chest and hug it in as tight as you can with your hands just interlaced around the shin. Have your feet active. Remember what my yoga teacher said, your feet should always be in Tadasana. So your left leg is strong along the mat, as if you're pushing the sole of the foot against the wall behind you, in front of you rather. And then your right foot is strong. Inhale, exhale, release that leg out along the mat and bring the left leg in. Hugging it in really tight. You feel that hip crease on the left-hand side, the front of the hip. Really sort of releasing the psoas muscle back into its normal position. Inhale. Exhale, release both legs along the mat. And we'll just have a minute or two in Shavasana. So if you want your layers, just grab them quickly. Got a couple of minutes. Grab your blanket. So find your Shavasana, lying out along the mat. Have your feet slightly wider than hip distance apart and really let your toes drop out to the side. That would release your hips. all the work that we've done this morning. Have your hands just slightly away from the body in a gentle V shape, palms facing up. Just take a deep breath in through the nose, out through the nose. Just let all those tensions go. All those emotions that you might have triggered. Working our hips. Working your psoas muscle. Releasing all the adrenaline as we've massaged the adrenaline glands, adrenal glands. Allow that breath to flow in through the nose, out through the nose. And I've got one final little quote for you. And it's, yoga is a light which once lit will never dim. The better your practice, the brighter your flame. Next inhalation, start to bring some movement into your body. Wiggle your fingers and your toes. Rotate your wrists and your ankles. And then take a deep breath in as you lift your hands up and overhead to a full body stretch. Point from your fingers to your toes. As you exhale, just let your arms rest on the floor behind you. Inhale, bend your knees, bring them up close to your hips. And exhale over onto your right hand side. And then when you're ready, in your own time, bring yourself up to seated. So we'll finish with our 3 breaths together. So sitting up, you choose your seated position. Sukhasana, Siddhasana, Padmasana. Sitting up straight and tall. Inhale, reach your hands up and overhead. Exhale to the heart center. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Namaste. Thank you, everyone. How are your hips feeling?